hope I'm doing this right.
You will spend many years in comfort and material wealth.
As a white man, that's almost guaranteed. Awesome.
Take it away, Michelle.
All right, thank you. All right, here we go. Claim the United States ought not provide military aid to Ukraine. Contention 1 is escalation aid to Ukraine since the annexation of Crimea is up to $1 billion. Burden 18, the U.S. is planning to send an additional $200 million defense funds to Ukraine. The decision will bring the total provided Ukraine since the annexation of Crimea up to $1 billion. And funds will provide equipment to support ongoing training programs and operational needs. U.S. military to escalate the conflict without changing the tide of the war. Any level of aid will be insufficient to beat Russia on the battlefield. Mersheimer. And 15, Russia's winning separatists are getting ground finishes. No center back. No army. Ukraine would be a huge mistake. Saying Ukraine not reduce it. Will not rescue its military over its army and separately to an escalation of the fighting. Russia has thousands of nuclear weapons and is seeking to defend vital strategic interests. Ukraine's military is about that by separatists who are Russian troops and weapons developed hard to decisively favors Moscow. Washington has sent large amounts of equipment for Ukraine's army to have a fighting chance. Russia would counter-escalate, taking away any temporary benefit. Even with enormous support, the Ukrainian army will not be able to defeat a determined attack by the Russian military. The US cannot overstate Russia, at least with the country's war strategic interests are they are only Ukraine can meet the majority of huge cost great power and harsh when rivals with the military front, they very much less than the country on the border and ally in the 80 was on escalation fighting also for other areas. That caused an increase in aid to Ukraine that results in NATO membership and Article 5 contingencies. Independently results in US entanglement and war. Carpenter 18, Ukraine's behavior in the Kursk raid is another example of US allies trying to get American military for its own imperial agenda. US using to make sure certain that the American public does not become entangled in the conflict of Lenore, collection of American interest in war. The motive for US challenges working and timing sure the portion of face the total election including some of the Kursk raid. This is going to be repeated rather on the flag and first martial law on terrorist theory. Police support of his presidency, Russia has done even military backing called them out as some Russian such that would constitute arbitration to Russia's force security and also lead to more difficult for the US and the security presence and increasing military assistance to Ukraine and as well for more US a strong lobbying effort for Ukraine to keep servicing administrations and refuse to abandon the artifact of obligating the United States to Ukraine's defense, giving Ukraine's strategic importance to Russia that is a claim that Washington should not take the Trump administration needs to put far greater distance between the US and Ukrainian policies. But even if it is effective at beating the Russians, that would cause nuclear war. Mersheimer 15, Putin might end up making nuclear twists. The global army Ukraine is to drive the cost of Russian interference cannot be ruled out. Putin would have a powerful incentive to try to rescue the situation where the nuclear situation Russia into a corner would be playing with fire. Moscow lost the American weapons of defense against the Washington is determined to resist attacks when Eastern Ukraine and all this. Of course, this is diplomatic, not militarily. European leaders liberate the Ukraine can be pulled out of Russia's orbit. That Russian leaders must they will not is the Russia help in the fighting. Seriously, Russia will strike first if it was not conventional war. Limited nuclear use will escalate. Schneider 17. Russia continues to put a large share of its national research on nuclear weapons, equating great power size with nuclear capability. That makes it that the Russians will combine the conventional force and the after the solution to Soviet Union nuclear weapons more important to Russian military afterwards. So right to use nuclear weapons in conventional war, this policy could possibly go by Putin likely understates Russia's thing on the using nuclear weapons. We have proactive for the condition using nuclear weapons to resist aggression, not only large wars, but also regionally, even local war Russian adoption. Then I will premature Russian bombarding extensively single force to de-escalate conflict, small restriction. If that's the launch of massive nuclear strike, Russian doctrine includes escalating the strategy that's de-escalating conventional conflict through nuclear small and nuclear tech that's going to launch the war. That is the only existential risk outweighs all other impacts. Far below all. In 17, a nuclear war between the US and Russia could be much with nuclear radar exchange could make it impossible to go for 5 years. The nuclear exchange is only possible between the US and Russia. We have no more than 90% of the world's nuclear weapons. The risk of the exchange is greater than the conflict between the US and Russia. Hence, having increased makes it unreasonable to them. Rising for the future. Contention 2 is solvency. Ending military aid opens the door to diplomatic solutions. Multiple past examples provide templates for a permanent end to the conflict. Also in 18. The strategy is based on mystery about the situation in Ukraine and the strategic realities of the US-Russian relations. Time has come for new diplomatic settlement. The Ukraine conflict is civil war involving external intervention rather than a price war. But during a powerful opportunity diplomatic solutions that are lacking previously has been ignored. Therefore, following as the US democrats are lowering the possibility for negotiations settlement by running up with the Ukraine. The US is giving over negotiations done internationalizing civil war and going through causes of conflicts in Europe have included the ethnic dimension as well as external events should be used as a guide. Cyprus bears a striking resemblance to the Ukrainian situation. The ultimate solutions found at the point of the peacekeeping forces also force have been going with the rights of support including from Moscow. Obviously, the Ukraine would be or would only weaken the peacekeeping forces. Second while resembles body to Bosnia, living evolution and interest that is out of the separatists themselves Bosnia's about ethnic grievances, which are used to be handled in a fashion where the US and the Allies to hurl on Ukraine. So it's a movement path towards improving Russian relations with US relations with Russia. Any solution will bring neutrality for Ukraine. The current US policies among arms was that any possibility of constructive diplomatic efforts to control the possibility should be rather than rather than revert outcomes. Independently, aid will get stolen by separatists. All benefits will be lost. Shunzowski and 18. It is imperative to launch likely to make our way weapons, but in the hands of those others than who they're intended US. So once they're stolen, they're in the first place. I don't think they're going to arms of some extremists militia or the Russian separatists. The Ukrainian armies lost control of council with army vehicles are taken by separatists and brought in non-lethal US military equipment sold by separatists, not like military systems, lethal weapons. Contention 3 is framing. 1. Use reasonability on team theory. Negative and reactive means they can shift the goalpost to something we don't meet. Bidirectional interests guarantee substance, crime, kills, top education, which is the only portable impact. 2. Realism is true. Sub 1.8. The structure of the international system requires the position of power. Will Vicus. And 17. 1. The international system is anarchy. There's no central authority, no net launch, no states, and turn for all 2. Reverse the major plays, the numbers that some offensive military capability states are potentially dangerous to the PC can be certain about other states intentions the assumption emphasis the danger of some before the primary goal states they may have further to the capacity of the only season 5 states of active state things strategically and act to the best interest. The mayorship between these 5 creates the dangerous rule states are afraid of the ability to secure survival again as much as possible positive to your global hegemony is unattainable because the large bodies of water the global weapons only so defensible as oceans bring great power attaining dominance over distant continents. B. Evolution proves prefer interdisciplinary and scientific approach. Johnson and Theory 16. Anarchy has been a constant feature of the entire multi-million year history. Evolution currently conditions the anarchy is involved in time together research competition and interview conflict. Humans have been something natural selection has provided toxins for us and community galaxy realized heavily influenced their decision making stage, especially in the anarchy but natural complex evolution predisposing nature towards offensive realism. Humans seek more primitive spirit by offensive realism broad and deep evolutionary roots right and based on life standards offer theoretical and empirical challenges to scholars and IR. The criticism of IR theories focus on engineering assumptions about the underlying human nature and international ways and sensory came from interdisciplinary in a sense. We have the opportunity to move away from the assumption about human nature and speaking more computation based on new scientific knowledge and a greater understanding of social and ecological context of human behaviors. Level 3. Ukraine is authoritarian. Plot 13. The current system in Ukraine can be classified as independently authoritarian. Seems to be moving toward the authoritarian spectrum. There exists electoral manipulation and glass to get consistency of reason and bonds which creates an unfair eventually comes competition is also large and unfair.
Ready?
Yep.
What sort of diplomatic process will occur as a result of the act?
Yeah, so the Austin evidence talks about 2 sort of potential templates that could be used. The first is the thing that resolved the conflict in Cyprus, in which the U.S. peacekeeping force was deployed, which solved the sort of conflict in the region.
Where does it say that that will be the response?
It says that it should be used as a response, and it says that Moscow has sort of been supportive of that response. So
How has Moscow been supportive of that response?
they said that they wanted it.
Where does it say that?
It literally says, calls for a force have been growing with fairly widespread support, including from Moscow.
What's the word for that?
It's literally a claim of what they said.
Like who said that? When did they say that?
I can look that up, but the card says including from Moscow, so I presume somebody in the Russian government said, we want the solution.
Can you look that up?
Yeah.
Okay. Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
Okay. Why is wait? So why does the status quo result in NATO membership?
Because Ukraine would have to keep asking for more and more aid, in which case eventually NATO membership would probably be given or offered. Some U.S. senators have been offering that because the war with Russia has not been ended yet, which Ukraine would obviously accept because.
Wait, so why is military aid key to NATO membership?
Well, because we give them so much military aid in the status quo, the conflict will not end. Given that the conflict will not end, eventually Ukraine will be like, hey, give us that membership and we can end this thing.
Okay, so we're relying on ending the conflict?
As a result of the absolvency.
Oh, okay, cool. So why does the app and or is that the diplomatic stuff? Is there any other way the app ends the conflict besides this diplomatic?
Well, even if it wasn't like diplomatic, Russia just like really doesn't care if the U.S. if the U.S. is not involved in Ukraine, Russia doesn't really care about it that much.
Oh, okay.
It is only such an important interest.
Why does military aid, like, why doesn't Russia care if we're involved with Ukraine in other ways besides military aid?
Because the military backing that we give to Ukraine makes them basically a proxy state for NATO, in which case they're dangerous on Russia's border.
Why can't they be a proxy state without U.S. military aid?
Because then the U.S. would be supporting them.
Okay, that doesn't really answer the question. Why is U.S. military aid insufficient to change the war?
Because the Russians are just closer to the battles. They can flood more and more conventional arms to the border faster than the U.S. can ship them over.
So
Russia really wouldn't give up.
Okay, so
if Russia invaded Mexico, we wouldn't give up. Like,
so if Russia is winning the war now, why would they stop post-AF?
why would they stop the war? Because
Yeah.
they have no intention of annexing all of Ukraine.
So what is Russia's current intention?
Russia's intention is just to protect its own borders. So they don't want
Wait, how is invading Ukraine protecting Russian borders?
Russia does not want to invade all of Ukraine. They want to counter U.S. influence there.
What is, actually, that's fine. Sixth in case.
What? 6?
Yeah.
Great. What one of the cares?
What?
What order on the case?
Just top down.
I'm only gonna vote for it. Just let you know that. I'm just gonna publicly say that out loud on camera. Okay, does it work? Show what?
Chris.
What? I said what I said.
I appreciate it.
I said that in public, prior to this situation. Were you there as well?
No, he wasn't.
Oh, this is clear.
He was not there. He was working on an election.
Can I tell you which 4 to
off in the LB debate.
Okay, don't flow the first one, then flow the next
Do what you,
one.
I'm just letting you know.
No, I just want to make sure you flow the fourth.
That's like high level.
So you're telling me the four that are most important? Is that what's going on, or-
Which
Or
means
maybe I'm just going for the 2-1.
Then you're gonna lose ranks.
I'm just letting the record aim.
Let the record show he doesn't consider you to be the important.
Matter of fact, I'm about to put that in my judge philosophy. Here, look here. Why are we sitting?
Let me know if it's sent because I think
I think it is.
You don't have no negative block. Okay. We're on this good old timeline. When you want to avoid a debate, you will do this.
So which ones did you want me to flow?
the middle four.
He's editing his paradigm, just give him a second.
I
I was joking.
Would have been good to know about half an hour ago.
I don't think anybody would do nothing ever.
Let me know whenever
They
they
say exceed expectations.
You don't need to flow the first one. So. Is everybody ready? Everyone good?
Yeah.
Okay. What's going on that one?
Interpretation, the applicant depend all regimes, equal lines, regimes, reverse, political, plus the upward intelligent test, report, the new kind of marriage, our default means of generalization, especially in more context, and we can tell about linguistic integration requirements of data of linguistic. Theorizing, you can see in one precision app counterterms will be arbitrary without propensity existential reading, which jettisons the top valuable always since the topic is the only critical basis for negative preparation. 2 is limits 52 apps use practice choice, incentive for deep research encourages resource superiority and unrealistic burden. 3 ground the cherry pick is insubstantial asset lack of less literature base or force of defending meaningful policy shifts that then it can engage with. Next off, interpretation authoritarian regimes have limited pluralism, limited political legislation, lack restriction on the executive last all limits frequently apply definition of areas of character to one limited pluralism, 2 limited political legislation, 3 legitimization, 3 mentalities and values, and narrow 4 5 6 legitimization, the selection of executive source limitations on executive violation. 1 Ukraine is free and fair elections, freedom house, 18 parties elected, maximum of 2 5-year terms, international liberty, if competitive and credible, parliamentary electing competitive and credible in yes, political opposition hearing. 12 11 250 Ukrainians gather for Ukraine's first political party. The movement is led by parliamentary reforms experience in and out of government. Ukraine already has more than 120 active political parties. Vote neg for predictable limits justifies aspect any random country that Vachon thinks is authoritarian, which can predictably inform negative preparation, can be the answer reasonably is arbitrary, invites a race of arm, or interpret is grounded in words of the topic and they need a defense of theirs and will win their interpret is unreasonable and already answer for me. Next off, counter context, President Trump should publicly condemn past aggression against Ukraine and warn against any further such action. Next off, Russia's strategy has changed to impeachment, leads to Russian invasion. This card is from 2 hours ago. How when he Russia will turn in and acts Ukraine, the West would not set in Slater responders, Slater pride response. We did not check. Second invasion, the colony of rumbles on taking Russia sees you not for the country. This made him receive even more Ukrainian territory. Attempts to the electorate votes we took. Crimean West did nothing on November 26th. Coast vessels fired on ships in international waters. Ukrainian ships had in the past from Ukraine fully searched to see any of the first long-time attack by burning Ukrainian naval ships in international waters. Ukrainian sailors, millions of Vikings, after annexation of Russia violated international local law from probably 2 3 by law agreement which Russian Ukraine agreed to share off new ground. Ukraine will not likely abandon its right through naval vessel presidential election. We help BBC to see for sure Ukraine crimes dependent on fresh water restaurants, making a dangerous temptation for Russia to be second follow pattern and find opportunity not military operation expose that opportunity to see whether for any serious international condemnation not the if not the states and not expand the operation nearly 2 months. There's been almost no international response. Russia would face little resistance for their attacks on Ukrainian territory. Previous have taken action to further aggression in the first place. Should cover revenge and military steps to European and American leadership in the past aggression against Ukraine war against any further such action. And the U.S. gets pulled in. NASA 1127 U.S. is not like what's happening in the entire national community with any other of the military discipline, but any halted in life by Trump administration will probably increase in opportunities. There would be a coordinated high level response to U.S. Russia puts international media sees bullying Russian aggression relative to military French would be deployed. The United States supports Ukraine voluntary territorial integrity directing the U.S. national security interest that escalates U.S. is drawn in Bartholomew 14 Russia U.S. and get escalated real nuclear arts here results for the Ukrainian crisis. Russia ready for the nuclear attack in Ukraine. Highly wish to be Russian David Bill and any other capability for considers having real risk and mutual provocation to escalate open war with real possibility of using nuclear weapons. Next up. Counter context, the United States ought not provide Ukraine with any military aid. He besides an electronic warfare package. As per Chernovsky, Schreiber, new package checks Russian cyber attacks. When we see Chernovsky 18 United States to be increasing support to help Ukraine counter the innovative electronic warfare, the Russian backs efforts over to release an electronic warfare package immensely more advantageous after Ukraine. The package includes Thor 3, improved air mobility 3 system, will also continue use of U.S. electronic warfare that first goes to Ukrainian soldiers to recent Department of Defense virtually emphasis on the integration of version electronic warfare capabilities, including military operations use of cost-effective technology, including potential arms and coordination preparedness, training for the rears of conflict in the electromagnetic spectrum. Russian cyber attacks bad causes blackouts and other damage. Greenberg 18 Ukraine has been lodged in a grinding down nuclear war with Russian conflicts. Also seen Russian kills, torture, shutting down Russian cyber warfare, cyber penetrating the networks of victims for new media outlets and railway firms, damaging all the concentrated terrorists and data structures cuts off their destructive speech by causing widespread power outage. The first term for blackouts by induced by hackers, and the counterplan is also key to effective U.S. response to Russian cyber attacks. When we see Chernovsky 18 is going to make a genuine difference from the electronic warfare space currently dominated by the Russian Ukrainian troops. Later be debriefed by the American counterparts and how the technology carrying real applications are currently in electronic warfare tactics and providing valuable insight used in future strategic planning. Next off, interpretation. Military is offensive military capabilities. I see IJ7 and Western funded programs are specific to a nation's offensive military capabilities are criteria for military violation. I re-highlighted their uniqueness and spoken 18 U.S. and 20th century military defense funds. Ukraine reference alongside defense related training programs and operational needs. Voting for limits they get access to benefits off communications and night vision, SIGCOM, medical treatment, visual shields that are boosted or aided defenses. They increase the topic multiple times over precision, even if they're a better version of the topic. The only critical basis for negative or pre-ground preps the meaning of the rest. They justify a different topic, not this one. Air and egg, they can't plan out a top quality. They're obviously defense ending that 8 and even if they ever plan text in a vacuum, good air resumption, if they can see the violation, all are aided defensive, so it has no inherency. The case, starting on the plan. United States is a landmass and can't pass a policy for the big on production because no one can do the Afghan to incentivize better plan ready the advantage. Off the Carpenter evidence one, there's no internal link between military aid and joining NATO. They can still join NATO without a military aid, and true presence is not military. True presence is not military aid, so we can still send troops to fight in the war, even if they end military aid. Second, it's not at all conclusive. It just says that the U.S. is shifting towards lobbying for reclaiming. There is no definitive plan that will be successful. Will actually result in them joining NATO. Their Mearsheimer reference lists a bunch of all costs of the Western sheet to make Ukraine a neutral Russian team. Russia and NATO Western explicitly take European Union and NATO expansion off the table. That the goals not allowing Ukraine to not threaten Russia, United States, and its allies should also work with Ukraine to rescue Ukraine's economy. None of that happens as a result. Yeah, there's Schneider evidence. This evidence is not conclusive. It says Russia reserves the right to use nukes, not that they actually would use nukes. Start of U.S. retaliation would determine that Ellison evidence. All of their this is on the solvency page. All of their other evidence disproves it because it shows the U.S. won't want to engage in diplomatic solutions. It's making a normative claim about what the U.S. should be doing in response to the invasion, not a descriptive claim about what they will do about as a result of the act, which makes it extremely uncertain. It means you should err heavily negative, even if Bushon sounds really good on this on the one area. He has to justify why Trump and other U.S. leaders would totally reverse their current behaviors and engage in a diplomatic solution with Russia. They didn't have the cipher who actually said that from Russia said that they were willing to do it, and all of our evidence, which is much more recent, says that Russia's not going to. Their Chernovsky evidence. One, these arguments about theft in other countries, which they haven't proven translates to Ukraine. Two, it's like two scenarios, and it's extremely hypothetical and not at all certain. They can't when this happens. Writ large, happens writ large. Here, more turns. Our military approach now is give their communication pressure words and a crucial strategies. 18 Russian warships, governments, and state all this from engaging Ukraine, illegal annexation to truly consolidate Crimea. Russia needs security communications for Trump. This will be another test. But you correctly another thing should have a serious impact. Trump has given Russia a few past 6 months as Russian behavior is clearly illegal, allowing frozen conflicts and untenable people, exploiting some surrounding the transatlantic lines of West must support Ukraine, including providing them armament, attended others, and holding Russia by killing Ukraine's pragmatic side, making diffuses crisis before it spirals, and framing the act as Russian appeasement and Russian apologetics. Historical precedent with World War II Germany shows the act is banking on diplomatic attempts with high chance of absolute failure. It's obvious that Russia is just toying with the weak-willed West. Forever, 18 breakaway regions remain under Russian control. Geographic patterns can be redrawn without more than stern limits from the West. As in Russian invasion, greater protect Russian Federation will let anyone tell them they can completely own it, out and trick out. Very full the next stage will continue to take the Ukrainian coast and connect to Crimea to Russian direction. They're taking it until they completely own the Black Sea.
Okay. Good?
Yeah.
Status of the counterplans?
Conditional.
Okay, so if your theory of Russia just being so aggressive that they want to invade Ukraine, I guess like a little history lesson. So like the U.S. sponsored a coup in Ukraine that ousted the democratically elected President Viktor Yanukovych on February 21st, 2014. Russia only started to move its troops towards the border of Ukraine on February 22nd, 2014. So I'm wondering if they're so aggressive, why did they wait until the U.S. took an action that toppled the government there to react?
Wait, sorry. So why did Russia wait until U.S. did what?
Toppled the democratically elected president there.
They saw an opportunity for ramping up invading Ukraine and getting more land.
Okay, so they were totally chill with Ukraine being there before, and then after the
it's not like they were totally chill. They just saw an opportunity and they took it.
Okay, if that is true, then why hasn't Russia tried to take over all of Ukraine? If
So-
Russia's so expand, it's not only about Ukraine, but like,
So
why didn't they try to expand in other areas
our
that are not
argument
Russia?
doesn't rely on Russia wanting to take over all of Ukraine, just that they want to seize more Ukrainian territory and further escalate.
Okay, sure. So if it's true that Russia's so aggressive, how much aid do we have to give Ukraine to get Russia to back down?
It's not like I'm gonna tell you like $3 billion. Our evidence indicates that increasing, like showing a strong stance against Russia is sufficient to deter further.
A strong state. We've given them $1 billion over the last 5 years. How much more do we need to give them?
Because we're not condemning their aggression, which is
Giving $1 billion to Ukraine, and like Obama and Trump, the two like most different people in the world, both saying that we should give arms to Ukraine. That is not sufficiently condemning it. Then what does any of your counterplans do to sufficiently condemn it?
So our evidence has specific examples recently of instances in which Russia has increased aggression.
Yes, in response, but you
have not
said.
done anything to respond to it. They've not condemned it. They have not really done anything.
Okay, so
to
after
respond to it. They're just dancing like,
after
"Oh, it's
Ukraine
okay."
like sent those ships into the Strait of Kerch, which your evidence talks about, the U.S. talked about sending more military aid to Ukraine, and then you read evidence from today, apparently from 2 hours ago, that said that Russia got aggressive again. Like we've given them so much aid.
Dude, we didn't ramp up military aid after that.
There have
We
been
didn't do
okay.
anything.
So what is the sufficient level to get Russia to back down?
I can't. Again,
Okay,
there's
you
not
can't
a
do.
perfect
Okay,
number.
cool.
Or
So even if there is some level of aid where Russia backs down, is Russia like, cool guys, pack it up, go home? Given that Ukraine is on their border, and it'd literally be like Russia being in Mexico, will Putin just like give up? Like, what do you expect to happen?
Russia would back down and would not engage as.
Okay, so Russia would be totally cool with us having a military
an
presence.
expansionist foreign policy. We're not saying like, oh, kumbaya, they all hold hands, but they would substantially restrict their foreign policy and not engage in such destructive and disruptive behavior.
Okay, you know where Ukraine is, right? Like, if Russia was in Mexico, would the U.S. just like be like, we won't be expansionist anymore? Like, why would Putin?
I don't
If
understand
the U.S. is right knocking on his border, like, and has a foothold there, why would he just back down?
Because he's scared of the U.S.
Okay, I'll stop right.
Okay, awesome. I've noticed something. There are art pins.
I'm not.
I bought them in the art store, which isn't super helpful to you, I'm sure, because it was in San Antonio and an indie art store. But I went to Columbus 6 years ago. I also bought some in an art store in Chicago then. So just an art store is my instinct.
Thank you so much for your help.
Can I ask one question? Why do your cards like keep paragraph breaks? Is that an intentional decision?
Yeah.
Sure.
I keep paragraph breaks, I think, it sort of helps reading cards and integrity, maybe.
I was just wondering.
I
don't think it's something not like that, it's a little pick and choose.
don't enforce it, it's just.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I just want to
myself.
And also kind of just like you just taste it.
Yeah,
So it's
I
just-
condensed mine after I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
No, it's in the context of like this.
That's for me.
That's not that great.
anti, then T
Whoa.
authoritarian.
I need a second. Neeble? What's that one? Okay, Neeble, authoritarian.
The like offensive military capability one.
Cool.
The like Trump says bet on you counter plan.
Cool.
The cyber pick.
The dissent.
We're in the case.
Case, I'll just give advantage and then solvency.
Did it first?
I hope so.
Advantage, solvency. Great. Makes sense.
I can send it again.
I see it in the. Huh.
Okay, I think just check my email, so
Great.
once it opens. Okay.
Do you have it, Rodrigo?
Oh yeah, I have it.
Okay.
Is that
Which?
here? I saw it in one with. Oh, maybe it's in the one from their prelim. I think that's where it is.
Maybe that's where I responded to. I think you did.
But I saw it Rex, Vashon.
It does look like that, so.
Yeah, so round 5, I think it's in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we good? Cool. Plain thoughts of word of the resolution, you should have heard the applicable over debate is not possible. You just think that you should err on the side of the plain happening. Second, the next argument, yes, it would lead to them going to NATO, increase military, would eventually lead to them becoming part of the alliance, because there's no other way to end the war. The president's argument, if we wouldn't deploy troops there, because we want to support American troops in the sense, but even if we wouldn't, and we haven't done it so far, which means that you should err on the side of the affirmative. The next argument says that there's no claim that it would be negotiation, or that the claim to get them in would be successful. Yes, it would be, because we have senators saying that we should offer that sort of membership, and Ukraine has going to do the first time all clause evidence. Ourselves is the key internal link, because otherwise there's no way that we'd offer them any membership or anything else. The next argument is that there's nothing that says the Russia would retaliate. Yes, they wouldn't in the first strike because they're losing the war, but they don't think the US would retaliate because it would be a smaller nuke, but obviously the US wouldn't perceive that way and would escalate. The solvency argument, even if it's normative, not descriptive, if Trump flipped his strategy on the said that we would do ourselves, then obviously we would have to then we would have to do it. The next argument, even if I couldn't cite specifically the crisis Moscow, even if it's not a part they do it. The next argument, even if it only said that even if it was only got stolen, it didn't get only stolen 2 times, it was multiple times, and you should err on the side of us, because even if it doesn't get stolen, it goes in the hands of extremist militias. The next argument, the reason why Russia is so aggressive right now is because we pissed them off. Their cards about the Ukraine invading street, which is Ukraine invading a Russian street, which is because they had increased US military, which they conceded from the one. Russia will let up if we withdraw military. They conceded real estate. The only reason why they want to be aggressive so much in the necessity to protect their own strategic interests. If the US withdraws, they have no motive to be there. Needle. I mean, different evidence that other authoritarian regimes exist for all intents and purposes. Ukraine is the only one counter-terrorism. For does not defend all authoritarian regimes are wrong about plural soul and and they're kind of sensitive rights for every number of compatible extent for against the truth of assessment takes this meaning context that we context the example of the extent of context like because for against the propositional forming extension what is it advances and options and their intercousins unbeatable picks over 100 times reaching with dim types of it. It means there's no universal advantage that can apply to all picks. They're here just because the and diverse, which then they can respond to a small s to the generics, but they have to here with this rest of the pick they don't have to reinvent the wheel every time it's functional and limits check small get always like generic basis like democracy back can't be critiques like pessimism, making known not allowed the lectures, perhaps more not hard, also styling negative and advantageous for etc. An unreasonable habit. Reasonability good is good enough. We shouldn't have to debate is the wrong form for the received definitional excellence and cause substance car, which is the only portable impact which we conceded. T authoritarian. Counter-authoritarian regimes are saved a life during competitive election, long bursting of 14 means that the term authoritarian regime dwelling is only unelected regime that extends preserve control neutral society, and Ukraine has only one to see, like a fair and competitive election. Their evidence doesn't even count that Ukraine is under martial law. So you come in 18 portion is under law, into martial law, introduced after 720 election, public resident operated martial law, so was the 30 cents of media, comes to the public property, ban below the party, the person go pays interest in the coin, and more 13 hard elections also like to be probably topic, but only we have evidence from qualified source literature. No one says their definition was different when the authoritarian regime is topic transition. No one says that the term prep and unpredictability. Ukraine received over $1 billion in aid over the last 7 years, and recent policy made a hop on issue which that is support the topic earned the side of preserving quality from given the next recognition and topic side guys. They also saw none of their offense, where there's no grounds to think of the politics and allies for instance had Russian aggression this as well as top channel sectarian conditions. They foreign aggression democracy bad. That's why we don't arm authoritarian regimes. They would still get that. T offensive weapons. We want to see evidence is the way send them tanks, which is that it is offensive capability, counter-repeating militaries, and anything that contributes to maintaining national security content and goes on 18 months. So universal definition for the term affirmates any transfer and strength in the military of a nation contribute and maintain national security. Military can be not given the form transfer money to purchase weapons and the military materialistic. Across the topic urban, the Trump counterplan permutation due is not competitive. Ukraine will also not carry, even if Trump said something, as long as still supply the military because they said something that is just Trump being cheeky and they defied sort of mandates before. The cyber counterplan picks are a better issue inflicted with the baddest by counts in the case of from possibly have to allocate time for the factors for distance. Otherwise, the case of it also doesn't solve since it doesn't make Ukraine a neutral state and still supplies aid the distant. How much more aid do we have to give Ukraine? If no brown for how much it is Ukraine, Putin just wouldn't back down because Putin just wouldn't back down because he sees that to be such an important interest in him, which means that he wouldn't just say, okay, you're on my border, I'm okay with the NATO expansion, as a made a mentor sharper for the US and European allies, to the responsibility of the president of the as NATO launch the EU's expansion was back with the democracy with critical elements, where we have only opposed NATO launch the early goal of threat of Ukraine's like the president, which you know who was the final step of moving the Russian back into this don't even course be into the Louise, suspended flag international time people remains irrelevant in US and European blunder intended to Ukraine and Western trouble. Also, uniqueness flows the wrong way, since if we increased aid to Ukraine, then why is Russia being aggressive in the status quo, which proves that the dissent is incoherent and that Russia will always push back if we give them aid?
4 minutes. Wait, what was the second answer to the cyber counterplan?
It doesn't make Ukraine a neutral state since we still provide them with aid, and Russia wouldn't perceive it as like, oh, it's only countering our aggression. It would perceive it as like the U.S. is still responsible.
Were there any independent voting issues besides PICS? No. Did you read both parts of the PICS bat or just the first?
Just the first.
Okay. The answer to cyber was it doesn't make them neutral in PICS, but there's anything else?
Those were the two, yes.
Cool. Just wanted to make sure I didn't drop it or something. T, the cyber counterplan.
Be a little bit more specific language.
I will say the words no or yeah, I'm not going for it, and then I will go for the uniqueness counterplan.
I'm resting my case.
The cyber, or the uniqueness counterplan, the cyber counterplan, the disad, then the case.
Is the uniqueness counterplan like the Trump says boo on you one?
Yeah. Yeah. That one.
The case where, just tap down.
Yeah, just like the advantage.
Is that now?
The impact of the welfare. The magnitude.
Everyone ready? Okay, good?
Yeah.
T, no RV and echo for any of them, the uniqueness counterplan could see the permutation just to test competition. Not going for the cyber counterplan, I'll start on Pixar, and Pixar could when it's at the center to be on a specific implementable proposal in a specific part of the military, which mirrors the way debates are occurred. In the topic of attributes, they don't talk about debates and that allows to have the most valuable education in multiple rounds. False breadth viewpoint is testing it's a legitimate opportunity cost and forces them to defend their app against a robust amount of objections. Linked towards any fairness because if they get better defending their app, they can overcome marginal issues in the future. Their argument proper one is if they had a good app, they would be able to answer picks. They should have a defensive why any all aid is key. Otherwise, it's their fault for any of that when they can prep to check their app. So we should get some flexibility to test it. Second is it's a legitimate opportunity cost, which means they should be ready to defend against it. Third is crossed by the reasonability argument. This was super blippy argument in the one area that you shouldn't. Super blippy argument in the one area that you shouldn't blow up, and you should still preserve substantive education. Now the counterplan proper. It solves the entirety of the case. Rashawn may be some solvency docs in the tour, but they have no evidence on this question. It would have no reason why cyber aid would somehow be perceived as the sort of offensive stuff that they're getting rid of. You should view the counterplan through a lens of sufficiency. They were super blippy on solvency on the case and have not explained and have not fully developed an argument as to why the counterplan wouldn't be able to solve the app. Two reasons. One, if they're right that Trump would ramp up diplomacy post-plan, which is their solvency argument about diplomacy, he would still do that in a world in which we're getting rid of every single form of military aid that we're providing to the country except for cyber defenses, because it would mean we're getting rid of all the bad forms of aid that the assets are bad and are leading to things like NATO. They have no explanation for why cyber is like the one type of aid that stops us from going to NATO, which means if they're right about their diplomacy plans, which we will contest, the counterplan would still obviously resolve that viewpoint. How is cyber perceived as somehow being offensive? All we're doing is giving a defensive measure that could use to prevent a Russian cyber attack. That is not the sort of land-based stuff that Putin cares about, and that is currently motivating him to continue. Their argument, that answers a lot of their stuff. They're going to blow this up in the Twitter, but you should use a standard of whether or not your understanding of the argument changes from the one to the Twitter. You also shouldn't evaluate their CX answer because they were super blippy in the speech and literally was just like it doesn't make them neutral with no explanation for why or why this one specific instance of neutrality somehow makes a major difference. The impact of the counterplan was conceded. Russian cyber attacks are bad and cause massive amounts of suffering. Blackouts result in massive harms to civilians, starvation, etc. All of which are terrible impacts. Even if you don't think there's a huge net benefit to the counterplan, if we win, it solves the case, and we win a ton of our solvency arguments. That's a reason why you should prioritize. That's a reason why you should prioritize their impact, especially considering they didn't really extend impact in the one area. I'm not caring for it, but I'm going to send a few arguments from here that will take out app solvency. First is that Ukraine opposition is inevitable. Their evidence is about Ukrainian response, and Ukraine is planning to send their vessels anyway. In the status quo, when the U.S. gets out, Ukraine isn't going to just be like, oh yeah, we're not doing anything to fight Russia. They're still going to fight for their border, and they're still going to send their vessels, which would cause the escalation the app was talking about. Second is uniqueness goes negative. The international community has not done anything to stop Russia's continued expansion, which means they would have no incentive to stop it, because even if the U.S. is no longer providing aid, the international community is not saying that they shouldn't be doing this, so they would just keep doing it. Third is recency. Elections are coming up. Last month they annexed the Strait, and the Russian economy is unstable, which makes Putin more aggressive. Their evidence ignores 4 important years of changes that prove appeasement is bad and doesn't solve. They also wants to get rid of Poroshenko, which is why he has an incentive to continually be involved in Ukrainian affairs, even if the U.S. isn't there, because he has other interests in the region besides just the U.S. Even if the U.S. is an important factor, the evidence does not account for the fact that there are other reasons why Putin cares about being involved in Ukraine, and the app does not stop any of those. This also is a huge problem for the app, because if they're right about their argument that Russia has continually increased their aggression in the status quo, why hasn't that triggered their impact? All of their evidence is 4 years old and proves that if Russia is truly ramping up all of their aggression because of the U.S., the impact should have been triggered by now. The case. As an overview, there we're super gloomy on the case. If you do not flow their arguments in the wire, you shouldn't let them make them new in the 2 reviews. I don't have a 300 to be able to respond to talks about the argument, about your understanding of the argument changing. If you weren't sure where they are on the case or what the implications of their arguments, it's unreasonable to expect me to know what those arguments were. The few solvency arguments. First is their solvency argument makes literally no sense. It's a normative claim, not a descriptive claim. The extent of the one-error argument is like Trump flipped his policy. What does that even mean? First of all, they didn't say that the plan is Trump. All they said was the United States, which means even if we're not going for the plan argument as an independent voter, still implicates their solvency, because the plan could be Congress or it could be another actor, and Trump could still say that he's trying to increase relations with Ukraine. Second is that even if they somehow fiat Trump shifts, they can't fiat a mindset shift from Trump. Trump's not suddenly going to be like, oh yeah, let's make peace with Russia post after. None of their evidence comes even close to doing this. This should be an app bar. Even if I don't have great carded evidence to answer this, the app has to meet a sufficient threshold to even have a reasonable advantage. Using offense defense on these sort of threshold issues is anti-educational, because it encourages the app to find improbable advantages with no grounding in the literature that they then win on. Because I don't have carded offense, which is the reason why you should assign it 0 risk, because they have no evidence saying that the plan would actually cause them to do it. There also exists no internal link for any of their NATO stuff, because they point to Ukraine could still join NATO even if the U.S. isn't providing military aid. Their evidence is about the U.S. sending in presence, which proves they misunderstood our argument, because even if we're not using military aid, we can still send in presence, because that's different from military aid, even if they join NATO. The point is their evidence is not conclusive at all. It's just like a couple people are pushing for them to join NATO, but that does not prove that any of those efforts are going to be successful. Their case has like basically 0 risk of solvency, so any risk of the counterclaims would be zero.
Alright, case, then the dissent, and then the counterclaim. Case, I'm going to start on the solvency card, not the advantage card. Everyone good? The act would cause the peace settlement with Russia, even if they had their sort of neutrality arguments thing. All of the 2 in our solvency explanation of the arguments were also new, because they're also will be, and the 1 and 2 which you should error F and give me leeway. First, it is not just about Trump flipping his stance, it's about the U.S. as a whole, which takes out this argument because the U.S. has supplied arms and other forms of aid to Ukraine. That's the reason why they perceive Ukraine to be a U.S./NATO ally, but the plan would make them a neutral state, because it would end all sorts of military aid to them, which the counterplan does not do, because it still provides them some amount of military aid, which is not a mindset shift. It's literally, we are not involved in the war anymore, which means that there would be a negotiated settlement. The sort of Russia doesn't support argument wasn't in the 2 and R, which means that yes, Russia would support a peace settlement and it would end the conflict permanently. Our mearsham evidence is the only way to end the conflict is diplomatically, not military, which they have no answer to the advantage. Yes, it would lead to Ukraine causing NATO. It's not about presence being there, it's about the increased, when the conflict goes on forever, eventually it will cause them to join NATO, because we think that's the only way to end the war, which means that it would happen, even if we wouldn't send presence there, because nobody cares that much enough. But if they join NATO, then they would just send presence there, and because nobody cares enough, and the status quo is conclusive that the more and more aid that we give them, the more and more the war drags on, the more and more close Ukraine gets to NATO, and that offer would be put there by multiple U.S. senators, and it would just increase in the status quo. If they win their counterclaim claims that it's enough at the turn Russia, they've conceded that would cause a nuclear war. If Putin was losing the war, he would lash out with nuclear weapons, because it threatens his regime survival. So even if they win their counterclaim solvency argument, that proves that Putin would lash out, because he wouldn't be one of the only pieces able to solve, and they don't access that through the counterclaim. There's no explanation of that solvency in the last speech. The dissent. First, I'll go down the line lines. First, opposition is not inevitable. It's literally not. Poroshenko Poroshenko's country, which is that absent U.S. attachment to support, they have no way to fight the war and they wouldn't be able to fight for their border anymore. Second, you think this does not go negative. They've conceded that the only reason why Ukraine is invaded that strait in the first place is because they thought that the U.S. aid back. Russia only seized it, and it was their strait in the first place, but they seized it because Ukraine had invaded their sovereign territory. The recency stuff doesn't matter because Putin has been acting this way forever. The Carpenter evidence also says that the reason why Ukraine invaded it was because of U.S. aid, which is that it wasn't Putin being aggressive, it was Russia, it was Ukraine being aggressive. Also, even if it didn't trigger impacts in the past, that's just because Russia's been winning so far, but presumably the counterplan would change that. The counterplan specifically, look, they have conceded that they only, so I guess I'll leave the solemnity over here. It doesn't solve any of the case because it still gives some sort of aid to Ukraine. Art Ellison evidence in the solemnity section is fantastic and says that the only way that we can have a solution to the conflict is if Ukraine is diplomatic, or if Ukraine is a neutral state. Obviously, giving capabilities to Ukraine would not do that, even if Putin perceives it as defensive. They say it's not offensive, it's defensive. But the second piece of Mearsheimer evidence in the F specifically says that Putin does not perceive it that way. What do you think that they're just defending against me? No, you'd obviously think they're training them to combat cyber warfare. It's about how Putin perceives the plan, which is that they don't solve any of the case. The second argument is that Trump would not ramp up diplomacy in that world because it would still cause, because there would still be sort of an investment into the war effort, which means that it understands, which means that it solves none of the case because the U.S. is still involved and it doesn't solve our diplomacy in a benefit. These are not new arguments, even if they were. It was predicated on the turn or Solomon explanation, which wasn't there. The impact, the sort of impact of these deficits always in that benefit of the dissent. Those cyber attacks don't cause anything but in keeping that military aid would cause Russia to be aggressive, like they are in the status quo, would not make Ukraine a neutral state, and they don't access the absolvency mechanism. And if it is effective at being Russia, then obviously Putin would lash out. Literally.
Are we done bound right?
Yes.
Where's your person?
Because it passes by if you have the same job, then it's
Well, he's held up the children at about like 20 minutes every other house, so he's probably not done.
Damn. Yeah, well, no comment.
He always roasts me for being the one to hold up the minutes.
All the ready times you, right?
No.
Or is
No, it was just that one tournament where he like ran in and was like, I'm flipping